How should Orthodox Christians think about the doctrine of justification? Justification was the central theological issue of the Reformation, but that did not directly concern the Orthodox Church. What I want to do here is summarize what the New Testament teaches about our justification in Jesus Christ, and show how this dovetails with the theology of the Orthodox Church. For Orthodox Christians, the purpose of our life is theosis, participation in the divine glory shared by the persons of the Trinity from eternity. Yet in the fall, man was cut off from the tree which allowed man to share in the divine life by which he was created. In Romans 5, the Apostle Paul refers to this as our condemnation. The language of justification pertains to the divine law court, but understanding the significance of that language requires understanding its broader scriptural context. Romans 5:12 says that by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men. Romans 5:17 states this in other terms. By one man's offense, death reigned by one. The condemnation from which Jesus saves us is death itself. Romans 1:3-4 describes Christ's work in these terms. He was made of the seed of David according to the flesh, and declared to be the Son of God with power according to the Spirit of holiness by the resurrection from the dead. We see Paul express a similar mystery in 1 Timothy 3:16, where he tells us that Jesus was manifest in the flesh and justified in the Spirit. Comparing these two texts allows us to identify what St. Paul means by justified. He is referring to Jesus as being raised from the dead in a glorified body. Romans 6:4 thus describes our sharing in the death and resurrection of Jesus, who was raised by the glory of the Father. That phrase is crucial, as it helps us grasp how Jesus does what he does for us. The glory of God in the Old Testament is God's manifest presence. It is that which fills the tabernacle with brightness at the end of Exodus. Likewise, in Romans 1:23, we read that man exchanged the glory of the immortal God for mortal images, and thus was subjected to mortality. Thus, Romans 3:23 tells us this: all have sinned and lack the glory of God, and are justified by his grace as a gift through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus. Our justification in Christ rectifies the fundamental issue facing mankind, the problem of death that results from a deprivation of his uncreated life. This is what justification is. We attain to justification when we are joined to Christ's death and resurrection in our baptism, wherein we exist in utter confidence that God will bring his divine life out of our death, just as he did for Christ in his resurrection. In Christ, the sons of man share in the glory of God, because in Christ the glorious God became a son of man. Justification, therefore, expresses the idea of theosis or divinization, sharing in God's uncreated life through the person of Jesus Christ.